Meet Alex, my charming, messy-haired friend whose brains are organized like a sock drawer that never learned folding. I watch him stand in front of a task and debate like a tiny parliament of squirrels. And yes, the squirrels are all wearing tiny berets. I promise we'll fix this, but first, let's laugh a little at his dramatic dithering because I like to think humor is the warm-up act for change. Decision fatigue is sneaky. It doesn't shout, "I'm here." It whispers, "Maybe later," until later becomes never, which is both dramatic and entirely believable if you're Alex. I can see his shoulders slump after a string of tiny choices, as if his brain charged a toll on every thought and now he's out of change. I'm not being mean. I'm narrating, but also I'm ready to hand him a roadmap out of the toll booth. Alex believes willpower is a muscle you can curl into submission, which would be adorable if it wasn't causing a lot of undone work and snack-related tragedies. I like to tell him that willpower is more like a battery that drains faster when you flick a lot of tiny switches, and you wouldn't run your phone on low power mode all day and expect miracles. He nods like he understands, and then Googles battery for humans because of course he does. Whenever Alex turns a big decision into a tiny one, his inner squirrels form a conga line, and everything gets easier. Yes, I just mixed metaphors, but it paints a party picture, and who doesn't like a conga line? I watch him swap. I'll design the whole homepage I'll sketch the header for 15 minutes, and his shoulders unclench like someone opening a window after a stuffy meeting. That's the strategy in a nutshell. Shorten the menu, less indecision, more motion. I like to think of setting up choices like prepping the battlefield. Except the enemy is procrastination, and the victory dance includes pajamas and productivity. Alex sets his environment before the battle, and suddenly his options are clear, his path is paved, and he looks inexplicably proud of a checklist like it's a tiny trophy. I tease him because he takes joy in small wins, and that joy is exactly the kind of fuel we want. Stick around and I'll walk you through why tiny choice design beats heroic willpower, how to build routines that trick your brain into being competent, and how Alex slowly learns to stop making every day feel like a cliff dive. I'll also tell you the part where he almost ruins everything with a late-night pizza decision because drama sells, and I'm nothing if not a responsible narrator. Spoiler, we fix it, and the pizza gets eaten responsibly. Mornings are a buffet of tiny decisions for Alex. Which sock, which message, which email to ignore because he believes ignoring is an art form. I watch him stand in front of the wardrobe like it's a fortune teller, and every outfit might predict his productivity horoscope. My job? Teach him how to make that buffet into a simple breakfast plate, because no one needs 12 options for socks. Alex treats his inbox like a sandbox for the apocalypse. He peers in, panics, and then buries his head in snacks until the tide recedes. I can't help but laugh because sadness turns into email avoidance, which turns into more anxiety, which turns into hilarious attempts to optimize later. I'm here to show him that turning notifications off is not betrayal, it's rescue. Alex has a talent for inflating tiny tasks into Broadway productions. One sticky note swells into a 3-act play, complete with intermission. I remind him that a scene change is often just a 5-minute action, and when he trims the drama, the task actually gets done, and the applause is immediate. He bows dramatically for a second and then gets back to work, because he loves applause, and also because I told him to. We map Alex's decision points like cartographers of the mundane: breakfast choices, email triage, meeting prep, creative work, and the critically important what's for dinner summit. As we outline each fork, I watch his face go from foggy to focused, like a foghorn meeting a lighthouse and deciding to join a support group. This mapping isn't glamorous, but it's the scaffolding that stops overwhelm dead in its tracks. Everyone has energy peaks and troughs. Alex's peak is like a short, glorious comet that misleads him into overcommitting at 10 a.m. I explain how to schedule important tasks during those peaks and mundane chores during the troughs, and he nods like he invented time management because of course he wants credit. It's not about being rigid, it's about being smart when your brain is renting premium bandwidth. Defaults are sneaky habit ninjas. Alex keeps a default of doom where he scrolls instead of starts, because scrolling is low effort and emotionally satisfying, which is the perfect poison for productivity. I gently tell him that choosing better defaults is like setting an autopilot to helpful, and suddenly he spends less time wrestling with choices and more time doing things that matter. He is suspiciously excited about autopilot, which I take as a victory for modern convenience. First rule: less is more, particularly when Alex's brain is involved because his more tends to mean more confusion. I show him how to take a menu of 12 choices and cut it to 3, and just like that, his decision speed goes from molasses to espresso. He looks amazed, as if I've taught him magic, and I don't correct him because confidence helps. Tiny first steps are my favorite trick. I tell Alex to make the first move so small it's basically a twitch, and he'll often keep going. He practices by setting a 2-minute timer to write an opening sentence, and suddenly pages happen because momentum is a jealous beast that hates being ignored. Watching him go from inertia to 2 paragraphs is my idea of a Friday night victory party. Defaults are free decisions you don't have to make, so make them work for you, not against you. That's my mantra and Alex's new prayer. I help him set defaults, like a dedicated work playlist and a do not disturb window, so he doesn't accidentally sign up for chaos. He treats these defaults like a new accessory, strutting around the apartment like a fashionable robot who finally understands human routines. If we make the tempting, unhelpful choices slightly harder, Alex will usually choose the better path because he genuinely prefers low-effort wins. So we move snacks to a shelf that requires standing up, and we put distracting tabs in a folder labeled "Do not open unless you hate fun." He protests in a theatrical whisper and then accepts the minor inconvenience like a stoic hero of productivity. Our brains love signals, and Alex is no exception. A cleaned desk tells him it's time to do focus work, like a tiny traffic light in his head. I encourage color-coded notes and visible checklists, so each cue becomes a gentle nudge rather than a shouting match with his own attention span. He puts up a bright green dot and then stares at it like it's a motivational emoji, which, frankly, works. Make the outcome visible, and the brain will chase it like a dog after a treat, Alex included, since he loves treats and obvious success. We set up progress bars and checkboxes so every tiny win is observable and celebrated with a little fist pump, which is my cue to applaud dramatically. He blushes and pumps his fist anyway because the positive feedback loop is delicious. Redesign a morning routine for Alex that doesn't involve chanting mantras or rebirthing, unless he wants that, in which case I can narrate nicely. Instead, we keep it short: water, a 5-minute review, and one tiny creative move. He emerges from it less like a zombie and more like a competent human being with coffee and a plan, which is basically magic. I show Alex how to use time blocks, so his day looks less like an open ocean and more like a well-marked path: deep work, shallow work, breaks. He color codes his calendar like an enthusiastic art student, and suddenly meetings stop eating his brain whole. He treats his schedule like a playlist now, cued, curated, and mercifully finite. Rituals are short, repeatable actions that tell your brain, now work, and now stop work. For Alex, that means a 5-second desk, tidy at start, and a simple 2-minute wrap-up at the end. I watch him perform these rituals like a monk with a laptop. And yes, there's a little drama, but it's productive drama. The wrap-up ritual is my favorite because it helps him leave work at work and reclaim evening pizza time without guilt. Alex used to say yes to meetings the way some people collect stray mugs, out of habit and mild guilt. I help him create rules like decline or propose agenda if less than 20 minutes, and no meetings in prime creative blocks, and he practices saying no like a new language. It's delightful to watch him get fluent, because good boundaries mean fewer interruptions and more actual progress. Evenings are where Alex rewards himself with doom, scrolling like it's a performance art piece, so we set gentle defaults. A short walk, screens down an hour before bed, and a low-effort hobby that isn't a glowing rectangle. I narrate as he trades scrolling for a 10-minute sketch session, which he insists is research, but also looks peaceful. He sleeps better, and that is the kind of tangible productivity hack that secretly saves lives. Weekends can be decision dumps for Alex. Should I plan or should I nap? Both, it turns out. We build weekend defaults like a one planned activity and one flexible slot rule, so he's neither overcommitted nor directionless. He likes the balance because it lets him feel spontaneous with structure, which is my personal favorite oxymoron and apparently his too. A minimal desk is Alex's secret weapon. Less visual clutter equals less internal argument, and he's filed under arguments we can live without. I guide him to only keep the essentials in arm's reach and stow the rest in drawers labeled later, maybe, which is both practical and delightfully vague. He admires the empty space like it's an art exhibit and then works because emptiness attracts doing. We make decisions one click easy for Alex by creating templates for recurring tasks, email replies, project briefs, even grocery lists that don't require a PhD to assemble. He loves templates, like a child loves stickers. There is joy and profound efficiency. I coach him through creating a few key templates and then sit back like a proud coach watching a very specific sports victory. We add tiny physical friction to temptations, phone in another room during focus blocks, snack jar on the top shelf, and apps tucked into a folder 3 pages deep. Alex grumbles theatrically, but then acts like a noble monk and resists because he likes being dramatic about good behavior. I narrate his martyrdom with affection because who knew self-control could be staged so theatrically? Visual trackers are like trophies for boring progress, and Alex loves trophies that don't require dusting. We set up a simple wall chart where each completed microtask becomes a visible mark, and his motivation quietly inflates like a balloon. He high-fives the chart like it's a coworker and is only slightly embarrassed when I join in the celebration. We don't just wish for focus, we build it. Alex installs sight blockers and sets his devices to focus mode, while he pretends this is advanced espionage rather than practical self-care. He looks vigilant, checking his settings like a spy checking a gadget, and I applaud the theatrics because focus should feel heroic sometimes. Digital defaults can be your ally. Default to off for notifications, default to do not disturb during deep work, and default to a neat folder system so your files don't evolve into a digital attic. Alex sets these once and feels like he installed an invisible personal assistant, which is exactly the effect we were going for. He experiments with a few tweaks and then grins like a new person with slightly fewer pings. Sometimes Alex hits a day where nothing sticks, and he treats it like a personal catastrophe, which is dramatic but human. I tell him, and you, that a bad day isn't a failed experiment, it's data. Take notes, adjust, and don't press the big red panic button. He begrudgingly takes notes, and I award him with imaginary stickers because positive reinforcement is my brand. When the plan unravels, we downscale to micro steps. 2 minutes, 1 checkbox, 1 email. Alex learns that regaining momentum is like rolling a snowball uphill, tiny at first, then satisfying as it grows. He celebrates each micro step like it's a medal because he secretly loves public recognition, even if it's only from me. Resistance is just your brain trying to keep you comfortable, so we reframe it as an old friend who needs convincing rather than a villain. I coach Alex through acknowledging the resistance, asking what it fears, and replying with a tiny, compassionate plan. He responds like a curious negotiator and sometimes even shakes hands with his inner critic, which is both weird and oddly effective. Accountability works best when it's kind, so we set up small check-ins for Alex that feel like supportive nudges, not public shaming. He chooses a friend and a simple weekly check-in and is pleasantly surprised by how motivating it feels to share tiny progress. I cheer him on from the sidelines, offering encouragement and the occasional motivational meme which he pretends to hate but secretly appreciates. Adding a little humor turns resistance from a mountain into a minor obstacle with a silly hat. Alex loves silly hats, so this works perfectly. We invent goofy micro-rituals like a victory dance for each completed task, which lightens the mood and lowers the pressure. He performs the dance with terrible rhythm and enormous enthusiasm, and honestly, it works better than stern productivity advice. Tiny wins accumulate into habits like pennies filling a jar, and soon Alex has a savings account of productive days he's proud of. I narrate how we scale micro actions into weekly rhythms and then into default behavior, celebrating as systems replace struggle. He looks at his metaphorical jar full of pennies and pretends to be rich in discipline, which is exactly the kind of wealth we want. Let's recap. Narrow choices, tiny first steps, intentional defaults, useful friction, visual cues, and kind accountability. Rinse and repeat. Alex copies the checklist like it's a treasure map, which makes me suspicious. He loves maps more than the average person. Keep the list visible, tweak as needed, and treat it like a user's manual for your day rather than a religious text. Before you sleep, plan one tiny action for tomorrow, just one thing that moves the needle, not an exhaustive manifesto of everything you might possibly do. I ask Alex to pick one thing and stick to it, and he picks with the dramatic flair of someone choosing a favorite ice cream flavor, indecisive but passionate. One tiny plan becomes the wedge that opens the door to a productive day. If a tactic fails, iterate. Don't throw the whole system out like last season's fashion statement. I tell Alex to tinker gently, track results, and give new approaches a fair trial before moving on. He nods solemnly and then immediately drafts 3 variations because old habits die hard and he's just enthusiastic, not reckless. Celebrate the small wins like they're major holidays because your brain takes them seriously and will reward you with more good stuff. We design tiny rituals for each win. A thumbs up, a short breath, a 5-second celebratory song, and Alex is all in because he enjoys theatricality and validation in equal measure. These tiny celebrations are the secret currency of habit building, and we spend them wisely. You don't need willpower to be consistent. You need better choices designed into your life so your brain can do less deciding and more doing. I give Alex and you permission to be human, to fail, and to redesign. It's an ongoing project, not a finish line. If Alex can change his defaults, so can you, and I'll be here narrating every awkward, brilliant step with a smile. Here's a challenge. Pick one tiny habit to add this week, commit to 2 minutes a day, and report back to your imaginary or real accountability partner. I'll accept carrier pigeons. Alex chooses his tiny habit with dramatic seriousness and then proudly performs it every morning like a champion in humble clothing. Join him. Be kind to yourself and enjoy the compounding magic of small, intentional choices.